Life has always been a battle. From the time you were a little sperm cell, you fought your way against millions of other cells. Once you go to school, it's like a mini jail yard where you need to learn to defend yourself against bullies. Here, you had to fight mentally, emotionally, and at times, physically. Then, once you started working, the battle didn't end, but only got more ruthless. There's a saying, don't pray for the easier lives, but pray to become stronger men. Now, listen closely to me, brother. No matter what way you put it, conflict is terrible, uncomfortable, and to be avoided at all cost. That is, if you want to be mediocre. Yes, conflict is indeed the reason why many bonds end up destroyed, and it is also incredibly uncomfortable to deal with. But here's the harsh truth. Conflict can be used to navigate through life more easily. Most men today are afraid of conflict and end up living mediocre lives. Someone will insult their whole bloodline, and they will not say a word to not risk offending that person. Their government may take away their whole freedom, but they won't speak up because they are good servants who have been told agreement good, conflict bad. With that said, here are the 5 mistakes that stop you from handling conflict like a real man. Mistake number 1, losing stability. You know exactly what I mean when I say that most people don't know how to remain stable during any form of conflict. Think about an MMA fight. One of the biggest ways a competitor takes advantage over the other is when the other man stumbles or loses stability. Oftentimes, you will see MMA fighters continuously strike the other man's inner thigh or calf to get them to lose stability. The moment you lose stability, you are nothing but meat to your competitor. By losing stability, you give the other person every right to walk over you. There are 2 ways you can lose stability in conflict. Firstly, by overreacting, and secondly, by not reacting at all. Of course, each different type of conflict requires a different version of you. For example, there may be times when it is best to remain completely stoic and not react at all. But when I say not reacting at all, I am talking about the coward who is always ready to run away from anything or anyone that can pose a threat to his comfort zone. And like I said, the one who overreacts and starts screaming at the top of his lungs just because someone disagreed with them is no different. No one would take you seriously with all that negativity. You would be considered a joke and a straight-up problem by anyone else. Remember, brother, it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment because no one taught us to keep calm, especially when someone aggressively disagrees or worse, insults us. But remember, if someone can get you angry just by disagreeing with you, then they have already won 50% of that argument. Become immune to their spell by staying calm and making rational moves. Mistake number 2, needing to be right. Think about the average fight. F you, no, F you. Or it may go something like this. I told you, and the person may reply back, yeah, why do you think you are the only one who is right every time? Nearly all conflicts are based on the fact that everyone involved thinks that they are right, and they are ready to cross any limit to prove this. 99% of the time, there's one big reason behind this: ego. Your ego is the only thing that matters. Everything else can go to hell. Men who go around the world with this mentality will only do you damage, and if you're one of them yourself, then I've got bad news for you, brother. your life sucks. No, I didn't say that it will, or that there's a good chance for that to happen. If your life is dictated by your ego, especially when it comes to disagreement, then your life is already horrible, and I wish you a speedy recovery from this disease. From friends abandoning you to your loved ones literally despising you, the downsides of needing to be right every single time are enough to turn you from a happy, successful man to the kind of man everyone avoids. This is, in fact, one of the greatest Stoic principles that every man must master. Unhook yourself from anything that makes you triggered. The moment you realize that you don't need to prove to anyone that you are right is the moment you walk this earth a free man. No one raised you specifically to handle conflict in this weak and hyper-feminized society, so don't beat yourself up over it. Instead, open your mind to the next step in the cure. And what is that cure? Simple. Instead of trying to prove yourself right in a conflict, try to look for the solution. While the 99% of the population completely butchers themselves during a conflict, only the bigger man is able to stay calm and dig for the solution during all that heat. Because, let me tell you, no one else will look for that solution. It's ultimately up to you. Mistake number 3. Using criticism like a weapon. You know you've done this before, at least a couple times, and who can blame you? Our modern world has practically raised us to be weak and subtle with our actions, pushing us to use techniques and sneaky tricks to win over our opponents. One such method of prevailing over them is the use of criticism in the worst possible way, to demoralize and make them lose control. An average person would quickly spot a weakness of yours and use it to their advantage during an argument. They tell each other things such as "you're so emotional" or "you lack self-control" in the most upsetting tones. Don't get me wrong. Criticism is definitely important and must be valued by any man of character who actually wants to develop. But criticism is so powerful that if used by the wrong people, it can turn someone depressed and miserable. So, how do you use criticism? Criticism must be used as a gift to the person. It must be presented nicely and with kindness in order for the person to accept it and actually listen to you. When you tell someone about a flaw that they have, the usual response is negative. But if you start treating that criticism like a gift, not only will you be more gentle, but you'll also let the person improve naturally and with gratitude. Mistake number 4. Refusing to learn. As I said in the beginning of this video, conflict is indeed a wonderful tool that us men especially can use to our advantage. Unfortunately, most of us don't think of it that way. We see conflict as an unnecessary problem that must be avoided at all costs, a problem that will destroy our relationships in no time. We keep on avoiding conflicts without ever thinking about the massive benefits that it has on us. The moment you start to avoid conflict is the moment you automatically turn into a people pleaser who doesn't have his own opinions because you fear that others will confront you about them. All in all, your life would be unauthentic, empty, and your mind would remain immature and weak. Now, picture yourself facing conflict like a real man and gaining huge amounts of experience from it. Your life would be much, much greater than what it is now. That's because conflict isn't a chance to let go of your resentment for someone, but a learning opportunity that will give you way more value than anything you'll do in life. Remember, no great man in this world reached their status without going through a bit of conflict. So cherish it, brother. And finally, mistake number 5. Never taking the time to think. All the points in this video are so strongly linked with one another, and this point goes back to what I told you at the start. People of all kinds just want to run away from conflict as it was a terrible act of crime. Why? Because that's what you have been told to believe by the movies around you and by the politicians around you who think you voted for. When these people get into a real conflict, they try their hardest to make it end as soon as possible, rushing through long conversations in order to avoid them. And because of this, so many conflicts often end up in separation. If you rush into arguments like a maniac, then no wonder you end up losing control, saying something in the wrong tone, or even using the wrong words at times. That's because high-pressure situations lead to discomfort, and our modern world has rendered us allergic to it. Instead of trying to just walk away from a problem, face it and take your time to think and strategize the best possible way to handle it. Trust me when I say this, brother. This advice will save years of your life. To see the next best way to level up as a man, check this video here.